YouTube viewers, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is a show by the people, for the people, and you, my friends, are my people. So join our growing community, jump in, and interact with us. That's just the way that we like it. On today's program, which NFL teams want to see the Tush Push banned? And Dan Dakich joins the program today. Yeah, that's right. And Dan is going to be throwing some fastballs at those federal workers who don't quite know how to react to Elon asking them to detail 5 things that they did at work last week. But before that, let's get started here. I don't know. Let's do one of the things that I enjoyed doing. Let's pick on the NBA a little bit. And I suppose, to be fair, this isn't really me picking on the NBA. It's you guys picking on the NBA, because I put it out to the Super 70 Sports audience on X a couple of days ago, asking the simple question, which of these leagues is the worst? And those are the 4 main North American professional sports leagues, with apologies to soccer. But these are the 4. They're known as the Big 4. And the public has spoken. And the public has spoken emphatically. In fact, the NBA coming in 77.7%. We ended up with almost 50,000 votes on this. By the time that the poll was done, the NBA 67% ahead of the second worst in the estimation of the Super 70 Sports Nation, which was Major League Baseball, followed by the NHL at 7%, and the NFL 4.5%. The NBA has issues. Let's go to the comments. The genius comments of the Super 70 Sports audience. Mickey Hodges saying the NBA was great in the 80s and 90s, but it's basically unwatchable to me now. I still pull for the Pistons, but it doesn't go past checking the box scores of every game. Random Dude says NBA went woke too soon. Hard to watch a league that doesn't like their viewers. Both of those comments getting quite a few likes from their fellow Super 70s audience members. There's an ad. I'm not reading that. Junkwax Hero says, played basketball in college and can't stand to watch the NBA anymore. 3, 5, or 0 says the NBA. 6 teams trade the best players around to each other. The game is focused on threes and fouls. It's incredibly boring now. Not to mention the last 3 minutes take over 30 minutes to complete. Branderson says NHL players on their version of the All-Star break tried to break each other's faces and bodies, and a few guys are even injured long-term for what they did. Meanwhile, LeBron's foot was sore, so he missed the All-Star game. You can see here, no holds barred on the NBA. Tony Mike saying the NHL's the best, MLB second. Living the American meme says it is what it is. It's the NBA. Coffee Boy says Premier League with all the diving and embellishments. Add a penalty box, then I'd say the NBA. Well, if soccer was a real sport, I would conclude that you're correct, sir, but I refuse to acknowledge soccer as a sport. So you can see the comments, people echoing one another that the NBA just isn't getting it done. Casino Joe down here at the bottom says, what is it? Yeah, this is officially an issue for Adam Silver, considering that you've got almost 80% of people agreeing that it's the NBA. And a lot of the reasons becoming kind of repetitive, because what are the things that people don't like about the league? Well, for one thing, they don't like some of the social activism stuff that they feel may have been misplaced. And I think that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And the issue for me primarily is the three-point shot has become such a huge factor in the game that it doesn't really resemble the brand of basketball that I grew up playing and that I grew up loving. The great writer, Hall of Fame writer, in fact, Bob Ryan, was on this very program some time ago, and he discussed the issues that the NBA has with the three-point shot. Let's take a listen.
For me, the three-point shot is the single worst thing to happen to basketball in my lifetime. And let's back up for a little history, okay? The ABA did not introduce the three-point shot. The ABA absorbed the three-point shot. The three-point shot, as we know it, was a gimmick of a promoter. I will repeat that, folks. It was not asked for by anybody in the NBA. It was the gimmick of a promoter, that man being Abe Saperstein, the impresario of the Harlem Globetrotters, who founded a league in 1961 called the American Basketball League. He hoped would be in opposition to the NBA.
It wasn't intended. And Bob Ryan, one of the great historians on the game of basketball, no question about that. The three-point shot originally, it was a sideshow thing. It wasn't something that was supposed to be implemented at the highest levels. The ABA comes along in 1967, and they're trying to do something to gain attention. The red, white, and blue ball was one of those things that they did. And one of the other things they did was the three-point shot, which the NBA adopted in 1979, 3 years after the NBA-ABA merger. But as we've said many times, it took a long time for the three-pointers to become something that teams were relying on so heavily. And I suppose we can thank, and I say that in air quotes, we can thank analytics for this, because the number crunchers, the eggheads, have figured out, and I don't dispute the math, I'm quite certain they're right, that the value of a three-point shot, it's 50% more. So if you've got guys that can shoot it in the vicinity of 40%, it's just a much better value for your money than anything short of a layup. My guest today is the host of Don't At Me with Dan Dakich. He is the pride of the Hoosier state of Indiana. Dan Dakich joins the program. Dan, how are you?
Today it's 58 degrees, 60 degrees. I've got my Cubs beer mug. We drink out of it. It's like the first day of summer. You know how it goes in Chicago or Indianapolis. There's that day in February where it just gets nice. The snow leaves, at least here it's leaving, and you walk out to your car and it's beautiful, and it makes me think of baseball, March Madness. Finally, it's just like it's like heaven. So I thought, you know what? This afternoon, after all my shows, after everything I do, I'm going to turn on a preseason game, drink beer in my back porch out of my Chicago Cubs beer mug. I'm doing great, Ricky. Thank you.
My God, Dan, I'm doing better. I thought I was doing good at the top of the program. I'm doing at least 50% better after listening to that beautiful, nostalgic waxing for good weather and baseball and all of the good shit. And now here I am going to fuck up our mojo by asking you to talk about basketball, Dan.
I'm good, after man. March Madness is coming. March Madness is coming. We're going to see commercials for Augusta. Cubs are playing. Let's go. I'm all in.
Let's fucking do this, Dan. Joel Embiid might not be in with us. What do you think? Is this broken down thoroughbred going to have to go out behind the figurative barn and get the mercy shot here? What's going on?
There are two kinds of injuries. One, like Greg Oden. Greg Oden was in great shape, and he had a terrible injury that he couldn't come back from. And then there are the fat-ass, out-of-shape, ridiculous injuries that I have absolutely no respect for, and that's Embiid. Look, you're a professional athlete. It ain't that hard. You got one job to do. You're an athletic freak. Get your fat ass in shape. Learn from the greats, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, et al. And don't get hurt because you're fat. That dude has back fat. You can't have back fat when you're him and playing the NBA. So he's hurt again. Hey, I'm not surprised. The NBA isn't that grueling. I went last night and I watched Jokic play, and I don't even know if he broke a sweat and had 19 assists. But Embiid is fat. His injury sucks because he's fat. That experiment with he and Paul George sucked because they're both the same guy, frauds. Get him out of here. Philadelphia, you made a mistake. That's all. That's it. You made a mistake.
All right, Dan, you're making it clear how you feel about Joel Embiid. Let's talk about the NBA and just the bigger problems. Joel Embiid's got problems, but in a sense, isn't he kind of emblematic in some ways? One of the poster boys for the fact that the NBA sucks. At least that's what a lot of us think. I want you to take a look at this, Dan. I tweeted out a couple of days ago asking my Super 70s audience which of the 4 major North American professional sports leagues, sorry soccer, you're still soccer, which of the 4 is the worst? And take a look at that, Dan. The NBA just absolutely blowing the doors off everybody.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, look, particularly what happened this past weekend where the NBA, I don't know, showed itself to be idiotic and unwatchable, and hockey showed itself to be prideful. Look, you cannot have players, coaches, whomever, the commissioner, that have no pride. Look, if you're going to have an all-star game, fine, great, but have a little pride. They're never going to fix the NBA all-star game without players having pride. They can do anything they want. Mac McClung should not be anywhere around an NBA all-star game except to buy a ticket. It should be LeBron or whomever, right? All the stars you got to give back. Charles Barkley said it really well, Ricky. He said you got to leave something better than you found it, and none of these guys are doing what Dominique or Jordan or Drexler did, which is participate in all-star game activities. And what Bird did, where he wore his jacket and won the three-point contest. And then you watch the NHL, and these guys are fighting 9 seconds in because the Canadians decided to boo the anthem. That's pride. And until you get pride into the NBA, I will say this about the NBA, Ricky. I honest to God, the Pacers games are fun. Pacer games on TV are awful. But going to a Pacer game, as we did last night, my wife and I and my stepdaughter and her boyfriend, absolute blast. I'm not kidding you. But to watch it on TV, horrible. NFL games, horrible in person, but to watch it on TV, awesome. So the NBA has got to figure this whole thing out, because if you don't have pride in your product, you expect fans to? Come on, not going to happen.
Dan, where did the culture go wrong? You know, when I was growing up, the All-Star game, you were at least getting some level of an actual competition. And as I've said on this show, nobody's expecting you to guard like it's the 7th game of the NBA Finals, but get a hand up, get between somebody in the basket, make some type of effort. We got something that resembled an actual contest. I'm old enough that I actually remember that. Where did the culture go so wrong that these guys can't even bring themselves to make a cursory effort at that game being anything more than a joke?
I don't know. I honestly don't, but I'll tell you this. When you watch, there was a time between, let's say, Kobe. Let's go Kobe backwards, and that takes you to Michael and Isaiah and all those guys. And let's go Kobe forward. Those guys in the middle, when they get interviewed, like Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes have this Up in Smoke podcast, when they interview those guys in the middle, from that point, Kobe on, not LeBron, but these guys, they're idiots. I mean, the stuff they talk about doing on the bench or the stuff they talk about doing in practice and the disrespect they have for the game, that's when it started. Look, when the face of the NBA doesn't care about the All-Star game or is disrespected like LeBron is by many of the players, then you're not going to have it. Kobe made the All-Star game matter. Magic, Isaiah, Bird, they made the All-Star game matter. Again, not to the point where it was going to be full court pickup, but they wanted to win. They didn't want to get embarrassed. There's a great story of, I think it was Jordan's last All-Star game, and they said, look, that young fella from the West ain't scoring 40 on Michael. Michael's going to go out with 40, and we're talking about Kobe. He ain't doing. There was a pride there. But all you got to do is listen to that Up in Smoke thing, and it's entertaining. But damn, bunch of idiots, bunch of dumbasses playing across the league. Post Isaiah, post Bird, post Magic, post Jordan, and post Kobe. Now, and I'll tell you something else. Ricky, you learned that you probably had this same thing as being a professor. When you acquiesce power to the players as a coach, you're done. Because kindness equals weakness in the world of NBA college basketball players. And Adam Silver acquiesced all the power to the players, and you can't get it back. David Stern ruled with an iron fist. You didn't dress right on the bench. Stern called you. You acted like a jackass as a coach. Stern called that coach. You did something stupid on the court that hurt the brand. Stern called that player, called that general manager. Adam Silver, trying to be the buddy of players and this, social justice warrior. Players don't respect that. They act like they do, but they can't wait to take advantage of it, Ricky. And as soon as Silver came in there, they knew they could take advantage of him, and they have, and you can't get it back.
Dan, you talk about ruling with an iron fist. That's what Donald Trump is encouraging Elon Musk to do just that. He said that he wants Elon to get more aggressive. Elon's doing a great job. I want to see more out of him. Elon Musk sending out the marching orders to federal employees saying, I want 5 bullet points of what you did last week by the certain deadline or whatever, and everybody's all up in arms about it. Take a look here. Dan, what did you do last week? Please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week. CC your manager. Please don't send any classified information links or attachments. There's a lot of whining about this, Dan. I mean, look, you're a coach. What do these whiny federal employees need to hear? Give them a little bit of a reality check,
I'll tell you what
check,
they need
Dan.
to hear. They need to hear you got 2 choices. Here's your choices. You either comply with what I'm doing or get your ass out. It's very simple. This isn't that difficult. You are paid a lot of money. You have great benefits. Now produce. And if you don't produce, like every other entity in the world, you are going to be out. There are plenty of other jobs for you. We're not saying you can't work. You just can't work here. And this is non-negotiable. There are certain things in employment that are non-negotiable. And one of those things is production. I am paying you. This isn't volunteer work. This isn't walking around, as a volunteer in the hospital, pushing a wagon, giving out books. No. You are paid. And not only are you paid, you're getting money, but you're costing us money. Not only are you costing us your salary, you're costing us paying into your 401k. You're costing us your benefits. So get your dumb ass to work, give me the 5 bullet points, or get the fuck out. It's literally that simple. And I don't want to hear a word about it. Here it is. We're telling you what to do. Everybody says, just tell me what to do. And okay, we're telling you what to do. You know your job description. If you don't know your job description, let us know. And if you're not going to do these 5 points, you're either too lazy or too stupid to do the job. One of the two. So you got to go. It's that simple. I don't want to hear it. Send the email or put your resignation in. That's it.
Professionalism. A little professionalism is in order.
Pride, professionalism.
Know what your job is, do your job, and be able to communicate in an articulate fashion to somebody else that you are actually doing your job. A lot like this guy, Dan. Hated his job, showed up every day anyway. It's called professionalism, motherfucker. It's time to make the donuts.
Hey, let me tell you something. My uncle, I always said this about people. My dad would get up 5:30 in the morning, go to work. He was a school principal. He would get there before. He'd make sure everybody was in order. My mother was a school teacher. My uncle worked 42 years in a steel mill. We didn't know whether Uncle Jerry was working 4 to 12, midnights, day shift, whatever. Did that for 41 years. You think he loved that? Hell no. But he had to provide. He had to have pride. He had to provide for his family, his children. He had the kids. He provided for them. That's what he did. And I always use that. Like, I don't want to hear about LeBron James load management after 11 games like he did a couple years here. I mean, damn, I don't want to hear it. I honestly don't. People get on my ass all the time about this. Hey, firemen, they go into the fire. Policemen, they go into the dark alley. I want to hear about some fucking athlete or some federal employee bitching, whining, and moaning because they got to actually do their job, which isn't that hard to begin with, and then report on what they did. That's called organizational structure. Everybody has a boss. I used to tell Bob Knight this. He'd get pissed about it. I said, I know you're the czar, but you got a boss, and if you don't start treating that boss, his name was Clarence Doninger, better, they're going to fire your ass unless you win national champion. He told me to go F myself. I told him to go F himself. I went to Bowling Green. 2 years later, he got his ass fired. And they always say in Indiana, if the Colts will cut Peyton Manning and Indiana will fire Bob Knight, your ass can be fired too. That is across the board in the great state of Indiana. So there you go. Go to work, do your job. If you got a boss, treat him with respect, do what he asks, and you'll be fine.
Ron, the Philadelphia Eagles continue to be in the news. We reported on this show yesterday, the word that was going around, it went viral very quickly, was that the Eagles had allegedly voted internally not to go to the White House, but we have since seen that swatted down as a false rumor that was not, in fact, based in fact. Clay Travis tweeting out that multiple NFL reporters, including the great Armando Salguero of OutKick, said that the Eagles have indicated that they would be honored to attend the White House and look forward to receiving an invitation to do so. The report that went viral otherwise is, as the White House told Clay Travis, fake news. So the Eagles at a minimum are still in the ball game to go to the White House. And if we are to believe the reports that have been given to Armando Salguero and others via some sources within the Eagles, it may in fact happen, Ron. And I hope that it does, because again, I think that one step back to healing our fractured country is getting back in a place where everything doesn't revolve around some grandstand gesture of your moral superiority over whoever it is that you disagree with, which is the reason that I said I would have gone to the White House. I would have wanted to have gone to the White House, even if it was Biden, just because it's the White House. That's an honor. So I hope that the Eagles do, in fact, do that. You know, it's a goddamn shame, Ron. The Montreal Expos deserved to go somewhere in 1994, and they didn't get a chance to do that. I hereby retroactively declare the Montreal Expos to be the 1994 World Series champions. And I'll be having a parade later today in my living room in recognition of that. Go ahead and hang the banner in Olympic Stadium in Montreal, because I've just declared the team with the best record in baseball, Ron, they got hosed. They had Pedro Martinez, I believe, at that time. They were an outstanding team, robbed of their chance to go to the World Series, and then 10 years later, Montreal robbed of the entire Expos franchise as they made their way to Washington. So, we might have gotten a Yankees Expos World Series. That might have been Don Mattingly's chance to get a World Series ring. One of the greatest Yankees, maybe the greatest Yankee who never won a ring. It's hard to be a great player with the Yankees for a long period of time and not get one with the history of success that the franchise has. But Donnie Baseball was in that category. Shout out to Olympic Stadium, by the way. I love the Big O. Take a look at this. Oh my God. We've got a great American out there somewhere, or a great North American, as the case may be. Shout out to the dude who recreated the Big O in MLB The Show, coming out from the Montreal Expos Twitter handle there. Man, that looks good. That looks a little too good, actually. That looks better than Olympic Stadium ever looked, I think. But Ron, that was one of my bucket listers. Yeah, look at that. The detail all the way down to it being Gary Carter behind the plate. Good eye. Good eye, Tim. But I got to go there in 2014, as you know, Ron. The Mets played the Blue Jays a couple of games in 2014. It was in March, late March, into spring training. The teams were coming north, and they played 2 exhibition games there. And that for me was a huge bucket lister because I thought the ship had sailed on me ever seeing a Major League Baseball game at the Big O. And I got the opportunity to see a couple, which I'm still excited about. Ron, we talked last night via text. You, me, Jared, in the old Ricky Cobb Show group chat here, where we hash things out, what we're going to talk about and have on this program. One of the things that I don't think that we really debated it because I'm kind of on the fence, but I know you feel more strongly about this. There has been a initiative put forward for a vote. I guess all it takes is one team to put something forward for the teams to vote on it, for the rules committee, the competition committee in the NFL. The Packers, as far as we know, we're being told it's the Packers, submitted a proposal to the league to ban the tush push, which the Eagles have turned into a goddamn American art form, just shoving Jalen Hurts into the end zone all of the time, or whenever they have a big 4th and 1. They've gotten it down to a science practically, Ron. They execute this successfully somewhere close to 9 out of every 10 times. It doesn't set well with everybody, and apparently the Green Bay Packers would like to speak to the manager. Ron, what do you think of this?
Get better. I mean, get better. Like people always say, it's unstoppable. Well, the Bills tried it, 4 or 5 times in the game against the Chiefs? How many times did they get it? None? Like, get better.
One more time than they got credit for. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
That's what I will say.
That's true. But, dude, just get better at it. Like, just because you can't stop it doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist. Like, and then how do you even legislate this in a game? Because, you can't push a player now, because that used to not be something you could do. And then you could push your running back. Your running back's legs are still churning. You could run up behind him and push him. So, like, where does it end? All I would say, Ricky, get better, get stronger, figure it out. Stop being a little bitch. Just get better.
Well, look, I am sort of not sure how I'm undecided. I'm normally not the guy who's the undecided voter. I'm pretty good about picking a lane and just going with it. I'm a little undecided. I would need to think about this because on the one hand, I think you're absolutely right. The Eagles are doing it better than any other team, and it seems unfair to the Eagles when other teams are trying it and not experiencing anywhere near the degree of success to say, we want to take the thing that you do exceedingly well that other teams don't do as well, and we're going to take that away from you even though you have done nothing wrong. That seems to be completely unfair.
Seems like communism.
The reason where, well, you have a point, Ron. You really do. Now, the place where I wonder a little bit is I feel like, just, again, if I get out my crystal ball and I, start looking at it like Miss Cleo here, whatever, what I think is going to happen is other teams will get as good as the Eagles. They'll figure it out pretty quickly. And within a couple of years, we're going to have a league where we have more or less 32 Eagles. And basically, the NFL becomes a game where you start 1st and 9. Because everybody, if it comes down to 1 yard, it's like an extra point type probability that they're going to get it. And I don't think I like that version of football. Now, maybe you could say, okay, Ricky, yeah, that might not be good if it gets to that point, but it hasn't gotten to that point. There's no guarantee that it will get to that point. So maybe, leave it alone for now. And if my prophecy comes true, reevaluate it if and when that comes true. What do you think, Ron? Is that reasonable? Or do you even care to that degree?
I mean, I see where you're coming from. It's almost like, I guess I might be okay with banning the tush push if everybody can do the tush push well. But until we get to that point, then you should not be penalized for figuring out a way to do something better than everybody else. I mean, we could come up with some ridiculous ideas. I don't know. Shaq in his heyday played in the NFL. Well, it would be almost impossible to guard Shaq if you're inside the 10-yard line and he gets himself into the end zone and you just throw the ball high. It'd be impossible to stop him from catching it. Would you pretty much agree with that?
You know, if Shaq possessed that kind of ability, I mean, it's like the old thing about. And I don't know if there's a rule. I don't know if there's a rule against this, but can you have like a 600-pound? Can you bring in like somebody from my 600-pound life and have them be your goalie?
Right.
Is that?
Right. But I guess my point is
Jabba the Hutt would be a great goalie.
If somebody that's 7'2" comes in only when they're inside the 10-yard line, and every time they throw it to him, he catches a pass, are they going to say, nope, can't have anybody over 6'8" playing in the NFL? I mean, where do you draw the line, Ricky? Like, where do you draw the line?
No, it's a fair question.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.